Geraldine. And my good friend Hassan Wiriuda, the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Indonesia. And Mari Pengetsu, the Minister for Trade. Rahmat Witola, the State Minister for the Environment of the Indonesian Republic. The Speaker of the Australian House of Representatives, Harry Jenkins. My Cabinet colleagues, Stephen Smith, the Foreign Minister, Simon Crean, the Trade Minister, Penny Wong, the Minister for Climate Change, Indonesia's Ambassador to Australia, His Excellency Primo Jiwolanto, and it's good to have you, Primo, and also Australia's Ambassador to Indonesia, His Excellency Bill Farmer, Tim Lindsay, Chair of the Australia-Indonesia Institute, and the rest of the family of the Institute who go back in time and have done great things in the past, distinguished guests, and all of you who are delegates to this Australia-Indonesia conference. And I should add at this point, other fans of Bule Masuk Kampung. Selamat malam. When I came here tonight, I was accosted by Jamie Mackey, and he's entitled to do that. He's been around for a bit. And his question is always disarming but frank, which is, how goes the relationship? Are you taking it seriously? My response to him was along these lines, that in the year 2008, the President of Indonesia, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, and I met on 7 occasions. We've now entered that into the Guinness Book of Records in the bilateral relationship. Stephen Smith, the Foreign Minister, says that in 2008 that the two-way traffic in terms of ministerial visits was 32. If you look at the official fabric of the relationship, there is a lot going on. And this is a very broad, important and vital relationship for us, as reflected by that level of contact, and having been myself to Indonesia 3 times in the last year. What does all that mean? It means for us, in our part of this relationship, that it is of vital importance to Australia. It means, therefore, that whatever challenges we face together in our region or the world at large, we in this country, Australia, have a first instinct, which is how do we work with Indonesia on this? Geraldine's anecdote before about the UN conference that she visited is, I think, an interesting insight. Somewhere in the world, if we are there and you are there, we often find ourselves, quite rightly, talking closely with one another, because after more than half a century of dealing with one another, I think we now know each other. And this is a very good thing. The familiarity of that and the ties that bind were at work most recently in the extraordinary natural disasters which visited Australia's shores, the fires in Victoria. The extraordinary generosity of the Indonesian government and people in their remarks, their sentiments, their gifts of money to the bushfire appeal, the personnel that they sent, are known across Australia. This was a very good thing, and I thank our Indonesian friends for it. As I said in the House of Representatives last week on this question, through those actions and through those words, we know one thing in Australia. Indonesia is not just our neighbour. Indonesia is our friend. And what you said and what you did spoke very clearly to that reality. And as I also said in the Parliament last week, I believe our friends in Indonesia discovered the same of us at the time of the tsunami. there was this unspeakable act of nature inflicted upon so many people across Aceh and elsewhere in Sumatra, that the instantaneous response in this country was that of our common humanity and that of friend and neighbour, summed up in a few words: how can we help? And we did. And I think as we've confronted these great challenges of nature, which have left most of us speechless in their ferocity and the intensity and the death and destruction that they have left, it has been a sober reminder for us all of not just the brutal power of nature, but of the enormous strength of our common humanity as neighbours and friends. There is a text for my remarks tonight. If you wish to read it, it'll be on my website. I don't intend to bore you with it. Let me say a few things about this relationship and where it has been and where I hope it might go in the future, and the role of this institute and this conference in that regard. When we in the Australian government and this Australian Labor government look back at the history of the Australia-Indonesia relationship, we are intensely proud of our role in the events of 1947. We know them. We actually understand that Prime Minister Chifley and Foreign Minister Evatt at the time were doing something quite unusual for a Western country in relation to a colonial power, namely the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Because what we said as a party and a government at the time was, we will side with the people of Indonesia in their act of self-determination. And look to the present. I see this extraordinary transformation, this extraordinary act of nation building. It is remarkable. Across the 17,000 islands, more than 230 million people, you have fashioned this vibrant democracy. You have fashioned this strong and growing economy, despite the challenges we all now face, and a society which is intrinsically tolerant. Mention before was made of the study of Pancasila and the whole concept of diversity and unity and diversity. And for Australians, this may seem to be an interesting concept, as we think we have diversity here, and we do. Spending a few weeks or a few months rolling around Indonesia is where you really encounter diversity. From Banda Aceh in one extreme to West Papua at the other, and all points in between. From the high cultures of Borobudur through to the outermost parts of Kalimantan and Sulawesi. It is a remarkable thing which Indonesia has done, to fashion this vibrant country, this robust democracy, this growing and strong economy, and this cultural tradition of tolerance and mutual respect. I personally would simply congratulate our friends in Indonesia for the extraordinary achievement of your national unity. When I look at the present and where this great country and this high civilization now stands in the councils of the world, Indonesia's place in our region is well known and well established and well secured. But I believe there is a broader mandate. There you are in Indonesia as the largest Muslim country in the world. There you are as an extraordinary and dynamic Muslim democracy. And there I think you have an extraordinary role to play in the wider councils of the world. And we in Australia would like to be partners with you in that. The democracy of which I spoke before, of course, has been hard fought. I remember, and some of you have heard this story before, being an election monitor in the 1999